range, 100 mm, it's megaplastic. Between 20 to 100, we call it mesoplastic. And then this one is the microplastic now. Anything lower than 5 millimeter is called microplastic. And lower than 1 micrometer is nanoplastic. So I think it was established at 5 mm because that's the size that can be ingested by the fish. It can be in your muscles, it's not only in the fish, no? It's in your, nasa seafood, okay? So this has already been mentioned also, just a review, no? Primary microplastics are the plastics that were produced in that size already. Pwedeng as resin, na gagamitin for other products, or for the cosmetic products, no? Yung kailangang you need abrasion para gumanda ang ating kutis. The secondary microplastics are those that have degraded from the bigger plastics, not from the macroplastics. Okay, so just to show you we can classify microplastics by their shapes. Ito ba yung, okay, so there's fragment there. Ito yung 1 mm na size, no? That's a film, pellet, sponge, sheet, and fiber. So all of them are identified through using a microscope. So isa-isa, mamaya I'll show you the microplastics that have been extracted. Okay, so there are different, it's made up of different polymer types and they have different densities. So as Jerry mentioned, PETs are denser than your seawater. So it sinks. Okay, so the lightest are the polypropylene, PP, polyethylene. Yan. Kaya nga he was emphasizing, no, na what we are seeing now are just what's in the surface. We still don't know what's at the bottom. Okay, so for this study, I'm going to show you the results of our studies taken from, I think there are 9 stations, all products of our students as part of their thesis. So the 5 river mouths here are draining to Manila Bay. We have Maykawayan, Tulyahan, Pasig River, Parañaque, and Cañas. And then draining to Laguna Lake are Sapang Baho in Cainta, Pasig River in the Napindan side, and Tunasan, the one in Muntinlupa. Tunasan is the first one that we did in 2018. All the others are very fresh results. Mainit na mainit pa. And then in the middle is Makati, the Makati City Creeks, no? 3 of them. Because it would be good to see the differences, no, if there are among them, although it's very difficult to make a correlation, no? But at least we can get some insights. So, so these are the photos. Okay, so before looking into the microplastics, we also looked at the macro wastes. Ano bang mga basura ang nandyan, no? So, unlike from a lot of other studies that have already been conducted, ours, we get our samples from the banks, from the river banks. Okay, wala pa yung, pagbibigyan kami ng pera ng World Bank, we'll be able to buy research boat laboratory. Maganda, di ba? Iikot tayo. I think that's what they have in Germany. Okay. Okay, so for the waste composition, I intentionally colored it red so it's easy for you. That's the plastic component of, remember, these are what we get from banks, from the river banks, from the river mouths, no? So from a low of, that's in Cainta, this is Sapang Bato, it's almost 30% to as high as almost 50% is composed of plastic. So earlier, Lenny was mentioning about the ban on plastics in Muntinlupa, that's in Tunasan. Okay, so it's still higher, no? From her data, it's already around, I think, less than 30, but it's still high there. Okay, so we focus on the plastics, and we also want to see what type of plastics are there. So we classified it according to hard plastic, film plastic, and then the rest if we can tell the polymer type. But this one I realized we have to improve also the classification of our macroplastics, no, the bigger plastics. Okay, so from there, just to show you how we do the collection of the surface water samples. So it's by scooping and sieving, not to separate it by sizes. We do it manually. Discard the bigger particles, and so that we have the different particle sizes, and then collect them and bring them to the laboratory. And for the river mouths in Manila Bay, we were also able now to get microplastics from the sediments. So they're collecting sediment samples, and yeah, so that's how the bottom of our rivers look like. Yan. Diba? And so here, we compare what this is. The one enclosed here is what was done in this study. So we compare, as Lenny mentioned, there is no protocol yet regarding sampling and extraction and even analysis. So this is what we did. So it's using a pail and then using sieves, collecting in glass jars, digestion, and then separate by density separation, and then filtration to finally get the microplastic. So it's more or less the same with the sediment samples, except that we're using this grub sampler. Okay, so to identify the plastics and to even quantify them, we use a microscope, and it's done manually. There and there. That's how it looks like when it's separated. And then to determine the type of the polymer type, we use an FTIR. Okay, and then for some of the studies, it's Raman spectroscopy, no, courtesy of the first one, courtesy of chemical engineering. We don't have our own. The Raman spectroscopy is from physics. Okay, so this is the results from all those studies. This is the range. In the surface water, it's from 50 to 57,000 particles per cubic meter. And then in the sediments per kilogram, that's a low of 240 and 1,357. So I brought here the microplastics that we extracted from the samples. No? This is how it, inside a plastic container, which we will manage properly. When we will reuse, we will keep on using this. I wanted to transfer it to a smaller plastic container, but I was afraid it's going, some are stuck within the plastic. So I can, if I can pass it around, maybe better not to open it, you might inhale it. Because that's another pathway that they are looking now. It can also be inhaled. It can also be transported through wind, no? And so this one, if you see, the perfectly round, we can pass it around. Oh, here's the representative. No, the country director of World Wildlife. Ay, hindi ba? Sorry, si ano pala? Joel. Oh, si Joel pala. Yeah, representative, pero Alet Nunez. So, no, I just learned from her that there's also a seminar at Marine Science, no, where they discussed microplastics. Sayang, sana sama na lang. Anyway, so the microplastics have different shapes. If you see there, the perfectly smooth spherical shape, those are the pellets, meaning meaning they leaked from manufacturing plants. Hindi siya from consumers, no, from factories. So it's leakage. Okay? So, hindi ako nakadalang price. Pahuhulaan ko sana kung ilan ang laman. Then bibigyan ko kayo, i-suggest natin kay Wawawin. Magkano ang laman? Okay. So if we plot it, the concentrations, this is how it looks like. For surface waters, we have a lot in Valenzuela. So this represents, not to scale, no, is 10,000, just to give us an idea. So that's almost 60,000 actually. No? The most is in Valenzuela. It's slowly decreasing here. Okay? So maybe the next part of our study, it's also interesting to see why is it decreasing there. There are many factors. You have a concentration of industries. This is also where we saw a lot of pellets, because that's where your plastic manufacturers are. And also, the flow also, it's draining out of Manila Bay. That could also be a reason. So these are initial studies that these are just initial studies. No? There are still a lot of factors that we can look at. So, but slowly it's decreasing that way. And at the Laguna Lake side, so Pasig River has less, okay, in this side, compared to Tunasan, and compared to the other concentrations along Manila Bay. Sa Pangbaho is draining to the floodway, no? Manggahan floodway, it's going that way. And the Makati City creeks are very few compared to the rest. This is a very small amount. Because if we look at the photo, because it's not, there are many reasons. Of course, we know how Makati is, and that's where Forbes Park drains its wastewater. But a lot of them are also fenced off. No? It's not accessible to random dumping of waste. But if you look at the macro waste, there is also some macroplastics. Also, the flow is faster. No? So there's also the hydrodynamic part of the problem. But anyway, I think this is a good enough starting point, if I may modestly say. Our contribution to all our studies about to the status of even Manila Bay and how microplastics is. So if we want to compare our results with the rest of the world, with published literature, ours is this one, enclosed. Okay, so how do we compare? Ours is much higher. But we also have to remember, so imagine this microplastics, first the sizes are not defined. Our smallest is 0.075 here. It's also possible that these plastics have already multiplied because they're getting smaller and smaller. So that's our data for surface water. And then for sediments, we only have those from Manila Bay and Pasig River, which is draining to Laguna Lake. So this one. Okay, so if we see how clean Singapore really is, see the size is even very small, and yet they have very little microplastics also. And that was in 2006 yet. No? So, okay. So those are the quantities that we saw. So in terms of the shapes of microplastics, so the circles here are from innermost. So this is Cañas, May Kawayan, Parañaque, Pasig, and Tulyahan. It's alphabetical. So we see that majority is made up of fragments, meaning it's coming from basura, okay, which just really became, were broken into smaller fragments. No? So it's mostly fragments. And next are film and foam. No? Styrofoam, actually. We saw a lot of styrofoam for packaging. Okay, so I won't go through each one of them, but in general, we can see the trend. No? The one in blue are fragments. And in terms of polymers, we see, okay, it's mostly polypropylene. This one, we use for our lunch boxes. I think the container of my, tama Jerry, no? The container of my microplastics are polypropylene, PP. Yung green, this one. Okay, mga ganyan. And followed by the polyethylene. Okay? So that's the plastic that you produced when you were with the chemical company. Kasama na yon. Ito, lagi nating ginagamit, no? Mga sandobag, HDPE and LDPE. Those are the two most common ones that we saw. By the way, in this circular summaries, these are only the rivers along Manila Bay. No? I didn't have the time to include those from the others. Okay, so I'll go now to the general insights that we can get from the study. We can see that still plastics comprise a lot, 25% to 50%, based on the WAC studies, the waste characterization studies. And that meaning, so what does it mean? That anong nangyayari sa ban on plastics, no? Even the single-use plastics. And the most dominant polymer, the most dominant shape is fragments originating from bigger plastic materials. So unlike in developed countries, they see a lot of beads. No? Kasi maayos ang pag-collect nila ng basura. It's mostly beads. It's mostly the yung painting sa roads, no? Because that's also plastic. So that's the problem in the first world. No? Parang sa atin, we can really see na it's from basura na hindi tinapon ng maayos. Next is, in areas where you have plastic manufacturing, you see pellets, meaning na nag-leak, no, from the factory. And then, this one is peculiar, no? Medyo kakaiba siya in Sapang Baho, where it's mostly residential and relatively mas konti ang basura than the others. So we saw a lot of filaments. And saan siya galing? Galing siya sa paglalaba. Sa washing machine. Now it's I think I don't remember the statistic. I think my students would remember, no? May nag-aral, ilang fibers ang napropose in one load of washing. So the challenge now for washing machine manufacturers are to lessen this amount. Okay, so that's a new challenge. May plastic na sa wastewater. Of course, iba pa yung nakain natin na lumabas, yung beads, of course. Okay? So what's the implication for sludge management? And you use it as fertilizer. Circular na, no, ang plastics. So yun na yung mga tinitingnan natin ngayon. And so just today, so World Bank will fund a tama ba? Sasabihin ko na. He is committing, no? Yan daw yung next namin gagawin is to look at the microplastics in wastewater. Okay? And then, okay, medyo na-touch to ni Jerry. There were very few PET samples that were found. We can link it to the fact na there are collection efforts for PET. Kumbaga may pag-asa. No, there's less of PET in the waste stream. Kaya you also see it less in as a microplastic. Okay, so yesterday I saw our very supportive alumnus, the executive director of ERDFI, and he asked me, he asked me kung magsasabi daw ba ako ng solutions or kung i-describe ko lang. Before I saw you, wala ito. Pero sabi ko, oo nga, sige, nalagyan ko ang solutions. Pero medyo na-touch na naman nila. What are the solutions? No? Of course, the basic is have an efficient solid waste management system. Make it work. Okay? Wag i-politicize. Paano ba? I live in a place where the young mayor was able to dethrone. Alam mo, parang pinapahirapan nila, no? Hindi regular ang pagkolekta ng basura recently. Yon. So, anyway, and kinasuhan, no? Naku, nasabi ko na nga ako taga saan ako. Pero, yeah, I think yun yung susi. Just have a good solid waste management system. I think as what Jerry said, specifically disposal areas, landfill areas, improve waste reduction programs, and of course, collection. Okay? Lalo na ang mahihirap na lugar, hindi na kinokolektahan. This one, for the industry, no, we need technologies to recycle single-use plastics. We should support them, study them, particularly these types, polyethylene, PP, and laminates, no, the composite plastics. The challenge really is paano ba sila kokolektahin? Lahat tayo nag-shampoo araw-araw ay nagsashay. How do you collect them? How do you concentrate them in such a way? Kasi to have recycling, dapat malaki-laki. You have a viable volume, di ba? There's a volume that you need to collect para it's economically viable. So that's the challenge. Concentrating your plastics, no? Ipagsama-sama mo. And then, again, involve the manufacturers. Hold them accountable in taking back plastic waste, recycling activities, invest in recycling, and developing alternative materials. Okay, number 4, especially for us, ang dami nating tourist areas. I just went to a very popular, although nasa dyaryo naman, Siargao, no? And I saw their dump site. Okay? Pinasara na. Pero, we have a lot of tourist islands where waste management infrastructure is almost none, no? Scant. Finally, enforce the ban on waste trade. No, it's my favorite. It's the first research topic I got into in sa mga environmental issues regarding the Basel ban, no? The Treaty on International Waste Trade. Kasi ang daming, what's this? Parang escape clauses. As long as there's economic value, then you can import it. But actually, it's for recycling, and then anyway, it's a global problem, but still we need to address. I think that's the okay. At the end of it is I'd like to acknowledge, no, my students. First is Ezra Osorio. Is he there? Ezra, tayo ka naman, Ezra. Yan. He did all the river mouths along Manila Bay. Yes, lahat naman sila lumusong. Then Lonel and Franz are also Pasig River. They're also there. Sorry, Ezra is a graduate student, MS, and Lonel and Franz are undergraduate students. These are their theses, no? So, Pasig River din sila, both sides, Manila Bay and Laguna Lake. And then Don and Marian, nandito ba? Si Marian, nasan si Don? Okay. Palakpakan naman natin. They're also undergraduate students. So sila yung mga, ngayon lang ba kahapon na-print yung manuscript. And Lea Jola, of course, is my colleague at the Institute of Civil Engineering. Stephanie Lumungsod, she was done with her thesis. She did the one in Makati. Hannah and Julie were the ones who did Tunasan. Maybe they're not here, nagtatrabaho na siguro. But I'd really like to acknowledge their hard work. Mahirap po ito. No? Ang tagal-tagal, and then you just come up with that little plastic of microplastics.